way and trying to create something new because they have to have an income because they have to pay off these student loans all the way through.
All right, let me ask you a political question, Andrew. A year ago when we had this conversation, and all they did was punt it 12 months ago, almost a day, the same thing. It was pretty clear. Democrats went after Republicans on this. Republicans didn't want to move on this. They just agreed to move it past so they didn't have the election to worry about. In this particular case, President put out his own plan that Republicans happily jumped on, and Democrats said no way on this. Who deserves more of the blame? Hopefully Elliot Engel will join us shortly. He'll give, I'm sure, his 2 cents why he thinks the Democrats are the victims here. But can the Republicans point the finger and say you couldn't even agree with your own president?
I think there's blame to go around to both sides. Yes, Democrats turned their backs on the president's proposal, which would have tied it to the rate of the 10-year Treasury. Republicans countered with some offers that included some fees on top of that. There was a Democratic proposal that would have paid for the Stafford loan extension by eliminating loopholes to oil companies and to some other offshore companies that move their stuff offshore. That, if you want to make an argument out of that, you could say, well, there was an opportunity there for Republicans to cross the aisle, but they wouldn't get rid of those.
To do what they always like to do is pay-go, right?
Right, but what happens is nobody's really trying to fix the problems in Washington anymore. They're trying to find solutions that are unpalatable to the other side so they can beat them over the head with a hammer.
And honestly, don't we all agree on this? It's getting so tired. This whole idea on stuff like student loans, for crying out loud, this unnecessary hassle that we have to deal with everything that's going on. They always were able to figure out something on this in the past. It has gotten so toxic, and even for us who follow this stuff, it's so petulant. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, you'd send your kids to their rooms if they tried
this.
That's
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And last week we were talking about the Farm Bill. Same thing.
Yep.
They can't get it done. This week we're talking about education. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get much better as you look past the 4th of July holiday, because they're going to come back. We're going to be faced again with the debt ceiling. That whole crisis is coming back. Immigration is going to be stalled in the House. I mean, we're looking at more of the same, and that's what you get when you have a severely divided government. It's no surprise.
And that's why, Andrew, don't you think, I hear everybody say, well, they'll solve it. It's a today story, but they're on break when they get back. I used to always think that, but we start with the debt limit. We start, how many times do they say, well, they'll stop before we get to the cliff? And then it's like, what cliff? After.
Well, and when at the beginning of the Obama administration, it was coming up to the cliff, whatever the cliff of the day happened to be, and then coming up with an 11th hour deal to avert the cliff. Now it seems like we go over the cliff and try to figure out how bad the damage is. And if it's bad enough, then we'll take action on it. Unless you're talking about flight delays for senators who want to leave and go home, then we got to resolve that
Now
immediately.
they say you could be retroactive and you can fix things retroactively.
If we tie this to lawmakers' student loans, the whole thing would be resolved.
Absolutely. The word that keeps coming up to me, just watching either state politics or federal politics or whatever it is poison pill. I keep thinking the word or the expression poison pill because any side that comes up with a bill throws a poison pill into it so the other side cannot accept it. And that's what's been going on in everything. And it's like it's all for the political posturing. It's not to get solutions. That's where we are right now.
And I just don't see anything in the dynamic right now where there's a downside if you want to be that obstructionist, because you get to be on Sunday TV, Sunday morning TV. You get to be on the shows.
That's right.
If you're the one who decides to be the pain in the you-know-what. If you want to make some outrageous statement like a Rand Paul, pick the show you want to be on Sunday morning. The guy that's trying to work out a deal in the back room, nobody hears about him or her. So, and that's the problem that we're in right now.
Rubio on immigration, he actually did try to work out a deal and got hammered from both sides for it. So there's really there's very little incentive to stick your neck out in an attempt to get anything done.
Because all of those members of the House, Republicans and Democrats that are in these safe seats have what reason do they have to think nationally and globally like maybe, the Speaker does? He has to think about that.
And that's
they don't. They're safe, so they're vying.
Yep.
They're fighting about 400 of them are safe.
Congressmen are in
and
safe
what do
seats.
you do? So they have an incentive to keep appealing to their constituents, and there's no real reason for them to think globally like this or nationally.
And we're going to talk politics when we come back after the break here, but I promise everybody, this idea of the affordability of college and the whole compact that we were all raised on, everybody at this table, I'm sure most of you at home here, the whole idea, you aspire to go to college. Maybe some of you were the first in your family to go to college. Now look at the conversations we're having where the mayor of New York City says, hey, you know what, maybe college isn't such a good deal with all the costs and all the long-term debt attached to it. And you can't even call what he said crazy anymore. Just think about how fast we've come in this country to that kind of a conversation where you seriously have to consider if it's worth it to go to college. All right, we'll come back to that issue later on in the program. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about two political stories that seem very different on their face. One having to do with voting rights and the other having to do with abortion, playing out in different parts of this country, even at the highest court of the land, but how they all have something to do with the political dynamic today and the risk and the reward of taking some of these positions. Stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back.